you, John.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are officially rolling on episode 32 of the Ice Team podcast, the second episode from this Devoted Outdoors headquarters in Bemidji, Minnesota. Early December, we just hit the ice for the first time today, boys, and we didn't really do that well. What would you guys think?
It was opener, but
It was opener for us. Maybe we can say we're just a little bit rusty. We had a couple of special guests on the ice today. Behind the camera, we have Tate Brewer, local from the area. He's rolling his eyes at me right now. We had Tom Hang here, Mr. John Crane, mastermind behind Clam Tackle, and our very own John Holmgren here of Devoted Outdoors, and we still couldn't catch that many fish.
unreal.
I know.
Yeah,
it was.
It happens, though.
You know
Right?
what? We don't have that good of fishing up here in Bemidji, though, really.
Yeah, right? Yeah, the moment the city guys come up, John's like, we're just going to not make them bite
We
today.
just don't take them to our spots, do we, Craig?
No deal. You gotta
Yeah.
save something.
Exactly. So anyways, this is episode 32. We actually have a fish fry going in the background because it's one of those things where you should have been here yesterday, right?
Yep.
Exactly. You'll notice Matt and Durham are not on the podcast today. Durham's down in Park Rapids. Matt had to go home to do some family stuff, so you have this motley crew of fine gentlemen on the podcast. And we're going to filter in Tate, maybe Ashley, maybe Mr. Ben Stone too as well. So there's a lot of people here, a lot of good stuff to cover. But first and foremost, Crane.
Yes.
Can we introduce you a little bit to
Sure.
our audience here? So, again, you're the mastermind behind Clam Tackle, but can you just give us your story from the start? Because I don't even know this.
Right on. So I was with Northland Tackle for 20-some years,
Yep.
and helped John Peterson, the crew there, develop ice fishing and open water baits. And we did well there. And then 10, 11 years ago, we decided to start Clam Tackle.
Yeah.
And I guess I work with an excellent R&D team at Clam Tackle, Mike Davis and Nate Nipper.
Yep.
And we work real close with the marketing team and the sales team to hopefully develop products that catch more and bigger fish.
So, before your time at Northland, so you're from Bemidji, right?
Actually, from the Twin Cities, yeah.
Okay. See, this is where I'm learning myself
on.
here. So, yeah, how did you get into fishing?
Well, I ran away to college in Bemidji, like
Okay.
most people do, and we bow hunted and fished and grouse hunted and duck hunted and and then went to school too somehow.
Oh yeah, that's right. You also have to go to school.
I can totally relate to that
Right
because
on.
I completely structured all my classes around hunting and fishing here in BSU. So
There you go.
Wow.
that's how it is here.
Wow.
You
Kinda
come to
jealous.
BSU,
Yeah, I'm pretty
and
jealous too.
just like me, I'm from Roseville, Minnesota. So you come to BSU, and it's a mecca of fishing and hunting. And once you come here, you don't want to leave.
And that's the story. I didn't leave.
So you came to Bemidji during college. You fell in love with hunting, fishing, the town, and then you started at Northland right after.
Actually, at a bait shop, Blue Water Bait.
Oh,
back
really?
In the day. Yep.
That's in
And,
Bemidji,
yep.
obviously.
Yeah, it's
Used
in
to be,
Bemidji.
yep.
Yeah, right near the inlet, the old Dairy Queen and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And then it just
a lot of
filtered.
history there.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it filtered from the bait shop to Northland Tackle, where I'm just trying to think how do you even get into designing baits and because that is an awesome job. When you think of it, you're designing
Yeah.
fun for people, right?
Absolutely. No, it is very cool. And I think, we can see a lot of that on the cusp today with people working out of their garages and their basement.
Yeah.
They're pouring plastics, they're pouring jigs, they're spray painting crankbaits. So it started out as a small business, and we're able to grow it, and that's how you learn all facets of the game, like I say, the marketing and the sales to go along with the new products. So
That's one thing that I definitely learned a lot about from working at Clam too, is you can't just make you can make an awesome jig in your garage, right?
Right.
But it has to be, for at least our crowd and how our companies like Northland and Clam work, it has to be, you have to mass manufacture them. There's a lot that goes into it. It can't just be we got this great jig, but we only have 10 of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes work
Absolutely.
that goes into it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to late on that, why don't you tell us what you told us on the ice today of how many Tikka Flash minnows are now sold out of almost?
Yeah, no, the Tikka Flash is this year's new introduction, primarily for panfish and those small sizes. And, it's been very well received, and we all fished it the last year or two, and it catches a fire out of bluegills and crappies,
Yep.
And specifically, you told us approximately how many were sold out in the last, they went quick.
Yeah, they did go, I don't know, it's tens of thousands.
Tens of
Unbelievable.
thousands.
That blew my mind right there.
I
So
know
that
it.
just to bounce off what you're saying. Crazy.
We just got back from the St. Paul Ice Show and a lot of ice shows recently, actually, and that one was the one that was on fire from all the retailers.
Yeah, it truly does catch fish. It's that that horizontal bait fish presentation and that little flicker blade on the tail.
Yeah,
and that's part of what we do. When we're talking developing new baits, is these baits have to be what we call no bait needed, and meaning out of the package. If you're taking a kid out to say a metro lake, that kid needs a positive experience. You've got maybe an hour or 2 or 3 with them, and they need to catch fish. And so our baits need to be no bait needed and just ready to go out of the box.
Yeah, that's one thing that I didn't play around with that much until I started working at Clam, because I'd always, pick up a tin of waxies or whatever, and I'm like, I need these, right?
Sure.
Well, then it's like, okay, I tried the pinhead, without bait, and I was like, wow, that's efficient, especially on like basin crappies where it's like, I just need to get down there, like, because they're going to swim away. It's like, bomb down to them. They will attack it if they're in the right mood.
Yeah.
I noticed with the Tikka Flash, because I was getting underwater footage here and there last year, and it's, when you look at it in the package, I was like, what does this thing do? Does it like rip like a lipless? Does it jig vertically? Does it dart? I've noticed it kind of does a lot of everything.
It does.
When you rip it hard, it rips up, that blade flutters. You can let it drop down. It kind of darts a little bit, but then like when you really slow down and work it up, it just stays in the same cone, just like a pinhead does.
Yes, it does.
It's kind of the best of all worlds. But no, that's a really cool bait, and I mean, hopefully we have good luck with him tomorrow.
Oh yeah, we will. Tomorrow will be a good day.
Yeah. So, anyways, John, what's new at Devoted Outdoors?
Oh, lots of things. We're on show number 10 of 13 on Bally Sports, so that went really quick. But,
yeah, no kidding.
We're just getting prepped and ready. We're going to start filming for Series 2 next week. And then the week after that, we're going up to Winnipeg. So pretty excited to go back there. We went there last year for the first time, and that is a special place.
Greenbacks.
Yeah.
That's on our bucket list this year too, with some of John's creations for upcoming years.
For sure.
So
just lots of good stuff. We're growing and things are going really well, and it's been fun. And the St. Paul Ice Show is really fun because our biggest thing for Ashley and I was to always make sure that we're making impact and a presence in the outdoors in a very positive way. That's what we wanted to do with our platform. And it was very well received on our Bally Sports series here. Had lots of people come up at the St. Paul show, and that was just really humbling, just super reassuring that it was making a good positive impact. And so it meant a lot to us. I
remember you coming up to me at the St. Paul show, and you're like, that guy just wanted my autograph. Like, he saw our TV show the other week, and I was like, that's pretty cool, man. Like, you're in households across the Midwest and whatnot. Like, people are just watching the show. You even said, so we're at the St. Paul show at the River Center, connected to the Excel Energy Center where the Minnesota Wild play. Yep. What did you say about them? They watch your show in the morning, or?
Yeah, so I was talking to Ashley's stepdad, and Ashley's cousin, Matt Niskanen, played for the NHL, and so he kind of just filled Derek in and kind of told us that one of the rituals for the Wild supposedly is that they watch Bally Sports, all the outdoor TV shows in the mornings, and so from what I understand, they're watching our show, so that's pretty cool. But it was just Ashley and I are just super humble about stuff. Like it's not even about like that kind of stuff, but that's why it meant so much at the St. Paul show to hear a lot of those people tell us, what they're saying, like, that, hey, we really love how you guys represent the family aspect and, that kind of stuff. So that meant a lot to us, and it's just cool. We're not used to, like, we don't like that limelight side of it, but it's just kind of cool that it's, if it's going to be that way, that it's kind of that presence. So for sure.
Yeah.
So lots of good things, man.
So you said you have Winnipeg is on your bucket list. Any other destination type trips planned for this winter?
Yeah, we're actually gonna try and chase the state record lake trout in Minnesota.
State record? What is the state record laker in Minnesota?
Big. Surprisingly, people don't understand how big it is, but we know we got a lake that we know of right now where there was a 54 pounder that came out of there, and So we're going after that
A
record, man.
54 pounder. I'm obviously you don't need to tell where you're catching these things,
Yeah.
but how many lakes even in Minnesota? I know you have like your Superior, your
Yeah.
stuff up north towards the border, Lake of the Woods, and some oddballs here and there that are super deep lakes. Like that's kind of.
I mean, that's the thing is, right? Like they're a deep, cold, clean water fish. So
Yeah.
you get a lot of that up north, and that's pretty much the area. You get up around, even north of here, northeast of here, a little bit over by Grand Rapids, and, over by Grand Marais, that whole northeast quadrant, I guess you'd say, is where the trout are. So
you and Ashley go over towards Superior and like the islands and stuff too, right?
we do a lot of fishing in Chequamegon Bay.
Really?
Yeah,
Have you-
it's a blast, man. If you haven't been there, you got to go do it. I mean, when you hook into something out there, you just don't know what's coming up the hole.
Well, we were out there a couple years ago with Tommy Hicks, and that was some of the more. We were on thin ice today, but like that was creepy. Man.
It was
like
sketchy.
it was. Yeah, you were there, Tom.
Yep.
It was the current was running,
Yeah.
and there's barges going by, and the ice is all heaved up and cracked. And I'm like, this is insane. And Tommy was out there on his snow dog like a madman, just like he's like, I'm gonna get to the island. I'm like, you can go. Like I don't know if you just want to say you get to the
Well, now
island.
they got the Sherps,
Oh
Yeah.
my God! Yeah,
Yeah.
like you can break through. Those guys are out of Bemidji, right? The Sherp or the dealership of Sherps, right?
Yeah, there's a dealership.
Yeah.
Tommy's got one too, but obviously
Okay.
a couple years now. He has.
Yeah, those things are
The
amazing.
Red Lake guys. Yeah.
We appreciated the snow dogs today, I guess, to a certain extent. It was glare ice, people.
Dude.
We actually had Ben was on his hockey skates. I wish I would have worn mine earlier today. So
Yeah.
if you do have plans of coming to the North Country, bring your
Bring your
ice
cleats.
cleats, skates,
Cleats for sure.
studded tracks if you're bringing out like a small machine like a snow dog because it was slippery.
4-wheelers need chains.
Four-wheelers need chains. Yep,
Yep.
Crane brought his wheeler out. What would you say we had on the lakes? We probably had like 6-ish on the first one and then
Yeah. And then
about 4-ish on the second one.
Yeah.
Really solid, clear, good
It's
ice.
good
though.
ice, yeah.
I mean,
there's-
we got lucky that we got that ice like we did right away because, let's be honest here. 48 degrees in December.
Dude,
Like it felt
crazy.
like we're March fishing.
yeah.
Just crazy.
Have you guys have fished up here more than I have, obviously. Like, this is a late winter, right? Like last couple times I've been up here this time of year, it's been snow covered. We've been, trudging through snow to get on the ice. We've had, snow dogs, snowmobiles. Like it's been different. And I think to a certain degree that probably affected the bite.
Oh,
Wouldn't you think?
100%.
Negatively, yeah.
Negatively, yeah.
Yeah.
It
It makes it tough. You see how yesterday, I've drilled probably 200 plus holes and we were running around the lake trying to stay on those schools because there's no cover. There's no snow cover. Them things are spooky and, we just got lucky and we found one patch yesterday where, there's a little bit more cover and they were hanging out there. So, but yeah, I've been here now for 15 years and I don't remember ever anything like this.
No.
The weird thing, like the fish were there too. We were
Yeah.
on them, but they
Yeah.
legitimately just did not want to eat.
Yeah, yesterday they were biting, considerably better and, we get a big pressure change and
Yeah. It
Just
could
shut
all
'em down.
change though tomorrow,
Yeah.
some snow's coming in, the wind's coming back from the northwest and whatnot.
Even scaling down today, didn't help much.
Right.
We tried not power fishing, obviously, right away. That was pretty obvious. And had to go to live bait and small plastics and tungsten.
That was
and
even challenging.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
I don't know.
That's when you know it's tough.
It was tough.
Yeah.
After we got off the first lake, I looked at Crane and I was like, yep, I think I kind of knew in like the first 5 minutes this was going to be challenging. You can
Yeah.
tell by just how the fish are acting,
yeah.
between forward-facing sonar and then even down to your flasher. You're just like, oof.
I could tell within the first minute because I looked at what the boys and girls were using, and it was down, like, say, to tungsten. They weren't
Yeah.
power fishing. I'm like,
Holes everywhere, people running.
No Tikkas and pinheads today.
No, but that's
Unfortunately,
that's
but
how it goes.
it's the way it goes. It's fishing.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was for the crappies and gills because
Yeah.
Tate did catch a nice walleye on a Tikka minnow
Yep. True.
thing, choked it.
Yep.
So, yeah, well, that was our day in a nutshell. So hopefully tomorrow's better. Crane, what goes when you saw us walking out there, like in your mind? So you design all the tackle. Are you thinking of like new, types of lures or baits that you could possibly use on any given day when you're fishing, or are you thinking, oh God, how am I going to make these fish eat a Tikka Flash?
I think it's a combination of both. You got to be, and that is the key, is to think about it every day. And that's what I do. I don't work in a body shop full time and do this. So this is what we do all the time at Clam every day. And it just makes you better. And it's a mindset, where we have to come up with something that is going to trick fish, but is not, too far out. It's got to work, right out of the box, like I say.
Absolutely.
And so we got to find another tool, another, club in the golf bag, so to speak, and that's not easy to do.
No, not at all. And you're an avid open water angler as well.
Yeah, I think, that helps too. Bass fishing tournaments and some walleye tournaments, and I love to crappie fish open water, and
What, I 100% agree that like fishing open water helps your ice fishing game. This is a little bit off topic, but I think open water fishing or fishing in general helps like your hunting game too, to a certain degree.
Oh, 100%.
Do you guys agree?
Yep.
Yeah.
You just understand how animals use edges and how they react to things and their temperament, their demeanor, and how they're moving on a daily basis. But anyways, back to the bass fishing thing, Crane. So I heard from DZ that used to win tournaments.
Well,
Is he
back in the
blowing
day,
smoke?
no,
Like,
back
what is
in the
back
day,
in the day? Is back in the day like 5 years? 10,
early 2000s.
Early 2000s? Before side image and like fishing bass? Or?
Before major electronics, but we got into it back, Bemidji was a powerhouse for bass fishermen, and led by Northland Tackle and the Petersons, and they were bass heads. Everybody thinks they're walleye heads, and they were too, but they're actually better bass fishermen than they were walleye. And so they started a big bass club there, and a lot of us joined it, and it spread out from there, and we'd go down and face the tough Minnetonka guys in the bass club. And it went from there. And competitiveness, you're fighting for $2,500 for you split with your buddy, and it's a great time.
I was telling Tom earlier today on the ride up, I was like, man, ice fishing tournaments really intrigue me because like for the competitive edge, but man, I don't know how those guys do that. They just abuse themselves and they are running and gunning all day. Whereas like a bass tournament, I can just like hook up to the boat, go lounge all day in the in the lake, try to catch 5 big ones. It's just like so much easier, right?
Yeah.
I got mad respect for dudes who go competitively ice fish because they are crazy to a certain degree.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
the conditions they fish into are just
God.
absolutely insane.
I mean, everything in the winter is harder.
Dude, we were today we were packing up after the first lake. I'm like, man, I thought we were going like lightweight today. Like we didn't have any machines. Like we were going to like, here we are. Like, I'm like, dude, we got like 50 different totes laying around and stuff. Oh my God, what a grind.
It is.
Yeah. So anyways, what's the food looking like over there? Is Ashley, it almost look, I can smell
I can smell
the
it.
shore lunch. I saw Cajun and maybe original.
Yep, both. Yep.
Yeah.
She's got some garlic potatoes cooking.
Yeah. We should mention too in this podcast, we are having a couple Grain Belt Premium Lights. I'm not, if you guys have been to like your local liquor stores around the cities, and I think even up around this neck of the woods, you might have seen a blue clam bucket with a Premium Light logo on the side. We have a little partnership this year between Clam and Grain Belt. It's a pretty sweet deal. You get a 6-gallon clam bucket, and it's a 24-pack of Grain Belt in it, right?
I believe
so. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So that's why you have seen some Grain Belts on the Ice Team podcast.
Heck yeah.
Cheers, fellas.
Yeah.
Cheers to Grain Belt, but not the greatest fishing today. Again, my feelings are a little hurt.
Yeah.
There's always tomorrow.
It's good to get outdoors, I'm telling you. Just the fresh air and with friends. And
first outing of the year.
Right.
You can't beat the weather.
No.
I mean, and it's just today was the day for it, unfortunately, to be tough. I mean, we've been hitting ice. We've been fortunate to hit the ice now for going on 2 weeks now, and it's been good all the way up, just early ice. But I think that big weather change is throwing them off.
Yeah.
So you guys were walleye fishing the other week, and I mean, if you guys follow Devoted Outdoors on social media, you'd see that Ashley just stuck a giant walleye. What do you think, like, turned off? Because you were seeing a lot of fish, right?
Yeah.
Prior to
even today we saw a pile of fish.
Yeah, we did.
We did, but, like, God, it seemed like they just were not in a feeding mood. But they were doing stuff that you'd think they'd feed. They'd come in hot, and they'd literally nose up to the bait and stop. Were you guys seeing that the other week?
No, they were coming in, and they'd nose up, and they were chomping it, So I don't know if it's just the pressure system coming through. A big weather change like this. I mean, we got apparently we got big winds coming tomorrow. We got high pressure. I think that kind of just turned them off,
Yeah. So
Fishing. That's the way it goes.
Yes, it is.
100%. Well, I always just think, what would Crane do in these situations?
Yeah.
Try a different lake.
Try a different
And that's
lake.
what we did,
We
Yeah.
went to a different lake.
You can hole hop, and move. And once you do that, you got to go to a different lake,
Yep.
Speaking of different lakes, let's talk about the big lake up in this neck of the woods that gets all the publicity this time of year, Red Lake.
Yeah.
So we know that there are people out there by the thousands, and they're catching walleyes right now. I haven't heard much about the major load of crappies yet, but what do you guys know about this time of year from Red Lake, specifically on, let's talk thin ice, clear ice, windy conditions, early ice like this? Crane, what goes through your mind?
Well, first of all, those crappies are mostly unavailable right now. They're just by happen chance because we can't get out far enough to explore. So we're talking walleyes mostly, and it just makes for a great day to go out there with friends and set up a hub or some flip overs, and you just like to get away from people. Typically, the old theory is you want to fish along a break or a crack.
Yeah.
You need to be safe crossing them, obviously, but trails are well marked, and you got to listen to the outfitters and the resorts. But we like power fishing with one rod, and obviously Minnesota can have two, have a set line on the other, and it's pretty basic, simple, and half hour of fishing, you don't get anything. 45 minutes, you need to move.
Have you haven't been out there this year, have you?
No.
But every other year you're normally out there like right away?
Typically Black Friday we shoot for.
And I know we talked about this with Brewer last year on the Red Lake podcast we did, but are you like setting up, are you trying to go as far as you possibly can right away?
No.
Or are you sticking close?
It's okay to be 7 feet, especially at dusk and dawn.
Yeah.
That shallow bite is there. Get there in the dark for sure. Get set up. You don't need to be out 6, 7, 8 feet. And then come midday, have a little breakfast, start exploring out deeper. And sure, by all means, get away from crowds. If that takes going out, fine. If it takes going laterally, either way. But get out to 10, 12 and find out. And then we like to come back in for that last hour,
Mm-hmm. I mentioned this on the podcast with Brewer last year, but have you ever fished like the super shallow, like let's talk like 5 feet area on Red and have had luck?
Sure, right out in front of the bulrushes. That first break, 4, 5, 6 feet can be overlooked.
Completely overlooked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. It's everyone you see it. They always try to cross the crack. How far can you go? How far can you drive your ATV, then walk? And it's like, I mean, what's a fish, like what's 8 to 5 feet for a fish? It's all relative, especially on red when it's just sand and flats. Like they just probably chasing the bait to a certain degree.
Yep.
100%.
Where you find the bait, you find the fish.
Yep.
And looking at tomorrow with that heavy wind that you mentioned, John, and if we get 1 or 2 inches of snow, which they're thinking, it can be a whiteout out there. And, one thing we always do is on our GPS, or if you don't have GPS on your phone, you want to mark, Rogers on Red or Beacon, wherever you're coming out of, Beacon Harbor, and mark all the bridges that you go across so you can get off the lake.
Find your
Should
way
things, even midday, we've had to go, we need to get closer to shore.
Yeah. The only concern I had today was I felt like we were walking on water the whole way. I wasn't too concerned about getting back to shore, but I'm like, man, are we on ice here? Like that was weird, man, with all the waves coming in.
We almost had
white
white caps out there today.
Yeah, it looked like Tom was Jesus out there walking away from me on water.
I've never seen that before. That was pretty crazy.
wild.
Super clear.
Yeah.
Made for some sick content, though.
So back to Red Lake. I know the Crappie Chronicle guys, they did a really awesome show late ice last year. It was sometime during the winter last year on Red. Is that like manageable for your average, couple dudes going up there? Like you did it last year, right?
100%, yeah. So, like John was saying, is those crappies aren't like the walleyes. They don't typically come in as shallow as what the walleyes do. And one thing that a lot of people don't know about the Red Lake crappies is, there was definitely a huge drop in population from back in the heyday to now, and now they're starting to come back a little bit. But really, in reality, there was good numbers throughout the years there. The thing is that people don't understand is we don't have access to that whole west side of the lake, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of crappies are in that neck of the woods over there. When I was a kid, my dad worked at Marvin Windows, and if your parents worked at Marvin Windows, you could jump on the Marvin Jet, which goes between War Road and the cities. And if there was an open seat, you could just jump on for free and fly down to the city. So I would fly down every year. I'd fly down with my golf bag and go meet up with my cousin and go golfing. But when we'd fly over Red Lake, I literally remember the one time flying over and you could see the massive schools of crappies. So that was back in like 2004-ish, 5-ish, and you could just see the massive schools of crappies. And most of them were on that west side, so I think there's a few more crappies than people thought they were in there. But now, I did hear that there was from the DNR, there was a couple really good years of spawning. So that's why we're seeing a big surge of, more crappies accessible in our part of the lake. So,
yeah. And when you guys got on them last year, you were running and gunning, right?
Yeah, it was, once you found them, it seemed like it was the same situation we had today. Like John said, with the walleyes, you find those pressure crack areas where the water had kind of bubbled over and refroze to where it's like pure white ice. And if you could find those areas, it seemed like they were like kind of congregated under there, just like we were dealing with today.
Yeah.
And if you could find those areas, it seemed like they were there. But yeah, you had to run and gun to find that. Once you found them, we just kind of set up, got the bite was really good in the afternoon. You could catch them all day if you could stay on them real good. But when evening and dark came, just like it used to be, and into dark, it was just phenomenal. And we caught a lot of crappies. And the best part about out there is you're catching giant crappies. And one of my favorite things, and what I think is really cool, and we experience up in Canada a lot on Lake of the Woods, in the islands, is that you can catch giant crappies. And you can catch really nice walleyes out of the same hole. I absolutely love when you can do that.
Awesome. It looks like we have a little bit of a sample here coming from Ashley.
Looks good.
Boy,
Look at that.
that looks
Right on.
pretty good. I'm going to take a piece of that.
Awesome.
Oh, man, look how crispy that
These
looks.
are crappies, right? From yesterday or something? Or no, there's some from today,
From today.
I think. Awesome. Thank you, Ashley.
Oh, man.
Awesome.
That is,
Try.
that's about as good as it gets right there.
Thank you so much.
That's delicious.
Pretty hot.
Oh, man.
I think the only other time I remember food on the podcast, excuse me, is when we had Ryan Pinkala on the podcast with the Crappie Chronicles. He made God, what was it? He had like a little blowtorch out, and he was like melting cheese or something on some crappie skewers. That was awesome, but this is pretty darn good too.
You might have to bring that plate back here.
Yeah, I don't know why you took.
I don't
it
know
away.
why you took that away from us so fast. Man, is that good. See, it wasn't that bad of a day. I mean, we kept, a dozen crappies.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, enough,
Enough
for a
to
meal.
have an awesome meal. And so it was a good day out there today. Can't crush them every day. Otherwise, what fun would that be if you
Right?
could just go and crush them every
Right?
day,
So after talking to Adam briefly last year, I think he mentioned to me that or someone mentioned to me that the crappies on red, they weren't they're not like your typical crappie from a basin that are like flying up high.
No.
Is that true?
Yeah,
They almost
no,
coming off
they're-
the bottom like a
yes.
walleye would.
They swim right with the walleyes, right on bottom. They come in, they look like a walleye. If you're using a flash or if you're using live, I mean, obviously you can tell the difference between a walleye and a crappie on live. But yep, they stay right on the bottom. And, and that's kind of weird too, because, I remember back, and maybe it's because back in the heyday, there was just, so many more crappies. But I remember going out there with my dad. There was times, honestly, that was so good. This is some of my best memories of Red Lake crappie fishing. I grew up in Roseau. Actually Salo, right between Roseau and Warroad. So it was so good and we don't have any crappies there other than going to Canada, right?
Yep.
So it was so good that I remember my dad parked outside the school waiting for me to get done at 3:15 with school. And we'd jump in the truck, and it was about 45-minute drive for us. And those are some of the funnest memories. We go out there, we pack the old Coleman lanterns, and we had the old, not the ants, but what were the John, you probably know, what were the famous crappie jig back then? The little glow, they looked like an ant, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But it looked like an ant, and they glow. And I remember getting there right as the sun was hitting, and we're like, yeah, we made it just in time. We'd walk out, and we'd punch the holes, and we'd just drill like 2 holes. That's all you need to do, 1 for each of you, because you couldn't control 2 more holes, right? Mm-hmm. And you put your lantern up, get it all set up, and we were using the old push button glow. The old blue push button gloves. You had one of those attached to you, and hook a full minnow on, and you blow it up and you drop it down. And I remember back then, literally 2 feet, and it was probably because they were so thick in there that you could catch them probably 2 feet down to bottom. And we literally just, you didn't have any flashers. You had nothing. You just drop your line where you'd be like, yep, that feels about right. Bam, 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 bam. For an hour and a half, 2 hours, just insane.
We're talking late 90s or what?
Yeah, that would have been, I was probably about 12-ish. So, yeah, like late 90s. Mm-hmm. Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. God, that's some awesome memories, man.
My goal this winter is to catch a red lake crappie, personally.
Right on.
Tried last year. Well, kind of tried. We took my dad's Wheelhouse out, and we just drove and drove and drove, and it was a complete blizzard when we went.
It was mega snow all winter.
We shouldn't even have left home, truthfully. So we get out there, and it's like the big road just kind of dwindled all the way down to just like a cattle trail where you could barely scrape the house through, right? And we're like, all right, there's an open spot. We have to go there because otherwise we're going to get stuck in the middle of this trail, right? And there we sat for 2 days, and we caught, maybe we caught a dozen walleyes or whatever. It wasn't great, but and I'm leaving there, and I text Tyler Brick because I knew he was going up there that night. I'm texting him like, yeah, dude, like, let me know how you do, right? He texts me back 2 hours later. He goes, we caught 60 already. I'm like, what? I'm like, where were you? He goes, we were about 1.5 miles from where you were all weekend. I'm like, what? How do we not have one roamer come through and just, smack a walleye jig? Like, I don't, that's what really makes me curious about Red Lake is I hear people catching them in all different spots, but then you hear guys who are on them, and it's like, it is just incredible.
And going back to what I said earlier, like you're pushing the limits of being on our side of the lake for that. And that's why I think there are that many more fish on that west side,
Is there more structure on the west side, John, or what makes that different?
It's not much different. It's just a little, it's a little bit deeper than what that east side is, the east side, there's a lot of that 5 to 8 foot stuff and then down to 10, 12. Mm-hmm. And then you get a little further out and it gets just, it's just that little bit of difference in depth. I think that makes it all different.
Yeah. Because lower red it's all structure, right?
Well, super
almost
deep.
Like a Mille Lacs-ish type deal with flats, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
And see, like I like hooking up with Roseberry every once in a while, to hang out with him up there and do a little fishing up there. But like them guys, they've been crushing the crappies for all through from when it was really good to now. Them guys, you see him posting pictures of catching piles of crappies still down there. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Red Lake is definitely one of those destinations at right around beginning of December around St. Paul Ice Show. We're all just like, how soon can people get on Red Lake and how aggressive are they going to be and who's going to get stuck on the wrong side of the crack?
Yeah.
Did anyone do that? Some people had to get rescued this year, right?
Yeah, I think there was a couple that we saw when we were at the St. Paul Ice Show. There was a couple people who had to get back across a crack. But I'll tell you what, Crane can attest to this. It is amazing. Like our house is just south of Bemidji here, and we're off of 71. And you go to Senex South, and you sit there on a Sunday midday. The Wheelhouse is going home, and on Fridays the Wheelhouse is going up. It is unbelievable.
Yeah, the Wheelhouse industry really has boomed in the last 10 years, I feel like.
Yeah.
I know, even Lake of the Woods, I hear, is like overly pressured with Wheelhouses. Like, what's your guys' take on that from being up here?
She's getting some pressure. Yeah.
Some pressure?
100%. I grew up on that lake. I've seen it. It's definitely getting a lot of pressure.
Yeah, how many thousands of Wheelhouses hit that lake a day or a weekend? Lake of the Woods is a pretty good ice fishing lake for your average Joe because it's a day bite. It doesn't. You can just jig all day and you will have fish come through. A lot of saugers, some walleyes mixed in, and it's just I tell people all the time who are like, I'm gonna go up north. Like I'm like, well, where are you going? They're like, well, we're gonna try this lake. I'm just like, you just go to Lake of the Woods. Like you're gonna catch fish, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
Tell us about a little bit back in your day, like growing up. Have you noticed a difference between Lake of the Woods, 15 years ago versus now?
Massive difference. It's night and day. The tough part about the whole Wheelhouse industry, which it's good. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love seeing people engaged in the outdoors and having fun with it because being out on the ice and sleeping overnight, like, how is that not fun, right? But the thing with Lake of the Woods is the bite, if you're not fishing early or late ice, the bite is 32 to 35 feet. And now with all the new studies with barotrauma, the sad and unfortunate part about having that many people staying out on the ice and doing that day after day, thousands and thousands of wheelhouses, a lot of those fish, people don't understand that they're catching and they think they're letting them go. It's not good, you know, and it's made it tough on the lake. I mean, Dad and I talk about it all the time. You can see the massive difference of the quality of fish and the amount of fish that you catch nowadays, and it's made it tough. And the other unfortunate part about wheelhouses is you're not stimulating the economy anymore up there. That area thrives on this kind of an economy, and now people are just paying a pass to go out, and now they're staying out on the ice. They're not eating in town. They're not staying at hotels in town. So that's been kind of a bummer to see too. So that's a big change that we've been seeing up there. And it's, you know, it is what it is. And it's just the way that it all went down. But it's, you know, it is kind of tough to see that, being that I came from there. And we take pride in that. You know, it's Lake of the Woods, the mecca of walleye fishing.
100%. I mean, so either way, in my opinion, wheelhouse fishing is great. It also has its cons and drawbacks, but I think people are getting more smart on what they do. Even like today we were joking around, you know, it was so windy out. I'd have like a Tikka Flash, you know, a little container fly off the sled. And it's like, pick that up right now, because you guys know the new law that's been in place. Any garbage, you cannot have garbage on the ice, which is a phenomenal rule, because people just don't, they might not bend over to grab that pop can, right? Like, and they'll just let it blow. And then next thing you know, in the springtime, here's this pop can on shore.
Let's keep her clean.
Yeah, these are like, every lake is a resource, right?
100%.
Lake of the Woods is a phenomenal resource. The fish in it are a resource. And even just cleaning up that, it makes such a big difference when you're having thousands and thousands of wheelhouses up there every single weekend.
100%.
That's across the entire state. So
we're seeing some good changes there, I think.
Absolutely.
The resorters are self-policing and stepping up their game,
great.
and the resort associations are helping them in a lot of instances. So
I think the knowledge on like what fish to target to has gone through the roof recently. Like, have you guys seen the new the video that was released by Angling Buzz? I think it was
100%.
last week. Jeremy Smith, like, that's some awesome intel. I just watched that this week, like how not to target those crappies, you know, beneath a certain depth of water, because the if they kick away, you know, they still might not make it.
Correct.
So it's just being respectful, responsible outdoorsmen.
Yep. 100%. That's what we're here for, is to, you know, help be educational. And I think that if you haven't looked into what barotrauma is or what it is, take a look at it and get educated. And like you said, that video, I watched it and it was phenomenal. So that explains it really well.
those guys are onto it.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, so Crane, John, I have a question for you guys. So you see thousands of people rip up to Red Lake every weekend, specifically this time of year, or Lake of the Woods. Are you laughing at them because they're passing up so much good fishing, or are you like kind of want to jump in their wheelhouse with them and go with? What's your guys' take?
It's always fun to have an opening day or opening weekend, or the first, like you said, you know, the first couple weeks of December. You know, you get out with your friends and you maybe, you know, grill out or have a hot meal at lunch, and it's all about the experience. You know, in my book, you got to do it a couple times, and then we got a lot of great lakes around here. Then you stick around home and take care of family too. And
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Crane. I mean, it's so fun to see that buzz happen this time of year, right? Like, you're like, all right, you know, you're kind of somewhat dreading winter, thinking, man, it's gonna be a long winter coming, but then everybody starts buzzing and you get in the mood. You're like, man, let's go ice fishing, right? Like, it's just cool to see that.
It's contagious.
It is. It's very contagious, and it's fun to see that. And but yeah, I mean, like John said, we got really good fishing here too, so it's kind of fun. Like, Ash and I talk about it all the time. Like, we're multi-species fishermen. I think everybody here at this table is, and it's kind of the spice of fishing, right? Like, and that's what's so cool about our area, is we got just a lot of different species we can chase. But
I was looking back through some photos we took of you and Ashley this last summer on Gull Lake when you guys had your big muskie boat out there and whatever, and you're not going to catch a muskie on Gull Lake, right? There's some tiny ones in there from what I understand, but you're still not going to go catch a muskie on a day in July.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, John, you guys should try to, you know, catch a bass. And it was the funniest thing because both John and Ashley were in the back of the boat, as muskie anglers do, controlling the boat with their Taroa from the back foot pedal. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And you're like, well, we're fishing for bass, man. Like, these bass are great. I'll just drop my jig over the side of the boat. It's fine. I'm like, John, no. Go. Do you have a Senko in your boat? A stick worm? You're like, what's that? I'm like, it's like the most popular bass bait of all time.
No, what actually happened was I had the Berkeley flukes in my boat. This is the true story, okay?
Oh my God.
I had the Berkeley flukes in my boat, and I told Drew, I said, man, this is a really, really good walleye bait. Like, we use these in the summertime on a TG jig, and we crush walleyes up here on them. And Drew's like, you know what that is? I'm like, yeah, it's a fluke or whatever. And Drew's like, that's the hottest bass. I don't know. Actually, I said, oh, I'll try the fluke for bass. And he goes, you do realize that that's like the hottest bass bait on the market right now.
Flatworm, Maxent flatworm.
Yeah, see, I don't even know the name
You know
of
what
it.
this is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Your drop shot.
Yeah, drop shot bait. He
Yeah.
goes, yeah, dude, these flukes are sweet, man. We're on Lake of the Woods catching all these smallmouth. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what is John using? I'm like, oh, that is a good bait. Sweet, man. Like, you're doing it.
They're awesome.
Had
You're
no
bass
idea.
fishing.
Who knew, you know?
Right?
And then after that, I'm like, well, anyways, you can probably still skip that, but we got to skip this dock. And you're like, what? And Ashley's like, well, I can skip the dock, and Ashley's just rifling away, smoking the dock, getting it all tangled up. I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
So you guys you're starting to be a multi-species angler, beneath south of Highway 2. We're working on it.
I will tell you this. We to this day, and this just happened this fall, we had probably one of the funnest days of fishing that Ash and I ever had. And we were actually filming a show, which you'll see. It's our very last episode. We saved it for the last one because this is going to be our favorite episode. And we took the kids to Mille Lacs, and we did the whole live bait sucker rigging for smallies. And that was one of the funnest days of fishing I have ever had. Watching the girls, because our girls are getting to the age now where they can do it themselves. And Ash and I just, at one point, the show was going to be a family show. But as you see, it's going to be more our daughter's show than anything, because we just sat back and we're like, this is such an awesome opportunity for kids to just do their thing. And you can mess up as many times as you want and you're still going to catch some things. And they fight like crazy, and it is the funnest time ever. So yeah, we became bass fishermen this year. And if you haven't taken your kids to Mille Lacs in the fall and done that, take your kids there. Unbelievable experience, so much fun. They can learn to do it themselves. You're going to get 50 to 100 bites a day, and it was just lights out.
Yeah. Don't tell the hardcore bass fishermen that you were live bait fishing.
Yeah, that's how it was.
But anyway, setting the hook no matter what is fun. And we've been chatting about just like our weekend, and we're like, we just need to set the hook, like that's what gets you hooked on fishing. And I feel like honestly bass fishing is one of those types of fishing that like really grabs you, because even so everyone who's watching, if you don't know, John and Ashley are major muskie anglers. And you were like, man, it's like kind of hard to get the girls on a muskie right now. Because like it requires a lot of freaking work,
Yeah.
Whereas like you can go pull up to a dock, or you can throw a bobber out or a live bait rig, whatever, and you're going to catch bass.
Yeah.
And they pull, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're fun.
It was fun. I mean, they had a blast watching them girls. They were just having a blast, man.
Yeah, your girls they're intense and they're hooked on fishing.
I do have to say too, another funny story about us on Gull and you showing us how to bass fish is, what was it, cutting the cheese?
Oh, frogging the cheese.
Frogging the cheese. Never heard that term in my life.
Ratting. We call it ratting back in the day.
Ratting the cheese.
Ratting the cheese.
Yeah. The man's rat was the first frog out there.
Yeah.
Call it the rat.
The man's rat.
Yeah. Made by mans. Yeah.
That's
we were ratting.
Interesting.
What were you doing? I was ratting today.
There you go.
Ratting the cheese.
I like it. Hey,
See,
there we go. We learned a new term.
See, Crane, you need to tell us more of these old school terms, because these old school like techniques, and it's funny, I've noticed in like the fishing industry, like what the guys did 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's relatively like close to what we do now. It just like kind of cycles, you know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
Like the new, like old stuff comes back. Like there's got to be some lures in the bass game that have just always been king. It just small things get changed.
Yeah, some of the fat wraps back in the day, we were cranking with them. Some of the old culprit worms and things like that, they still work.
Yeah. Like I always, when I was at FLW, people would be throwing the Carolina rigs all the time.
Oh yeah.
And when I first started learning about it, I'm like, it's a Lindy rig, right?
Right.
It's a weight with a leader, and then you have your bait.
Yep.
You're just
Yeah.
casting it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a bait
Hilarious.
presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe Crane has some good ones that'll revive sometime from
You
the
never know.
vault.
You never know.
No, we really don't know what Crane does sometimes, but it's the mastermind behind it where you're just I like to think you're just brainstorming in Bemidji all the time, just sitting by yourself on the lake. Like,
You got to test these lures, right? You
100%.
got to catch fish.
That's
So
right.
absolutely. Right
You
on
can't
the
just
box.
catch fishermen.
No.
That's right.
No.
I mean, the lures have to work. People have to buy them. People have to catch fish on them. I mean, it's the enjoyment, and it really creates the full circle from the moment you go to the bait shop and that lure catches your eye and you catch that fish. It's just absolutely phenomenal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then when John can learn how to skip a Senko, someday we'll really be the all-around angler.
I mean, this is a one time, or I shouldn't say one time, but I mean, we really need to hit home like John Crane, because I mean, being honest, like before hooking up with Clam, I didn't personally know John, but dude, you're just an all around good dude.
Hey, appreciate that, man.
You're looking out for everybody's best interest. You're always, looking to help out. So we got to give a big shout out to you, man. I mean, a lot of times you don't get all the credit that you deserve, because
No.
you truly
know
are.
the deal. No, I appreciate
know,
the kind
but-
words.
No,
That's,
but I mean, you gotta tell people that every once in a while.
that's
and
reinforcing. I appreciate that.
you do an awesome job with that, and you're a good teacher. A lot of people don't know that either. I mean, you're a stick, you're a hammer out there, and it's really cool to be able to be a team member with you on that. So
It's all about educating people. You hit it right on the head.
yeah,
Thanks for the kind words.
for sure. 100%.
Well, a lot of what you do, Crane, is it really affects the entire ice fishing industry.
100%.
You come out with a bait like the Pinhead Pro,
Sure.
and we were like, I remember immediately when you did that, we were just like, you're changing the Pinhead?
That was a
It was a scary
Right?
deal.
Yeah.
I remember
Like,
when
this
that
thing
happened.
is
I know.
like bulletproof,
Right.
right?
well. We were only 1 year into it,
Right.
and yeah, we were windmilling them on the pinhead.
Yeah.
And then I show up a year later and pull the carpet out from the floor and say we broke the mold, and we did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we switched from lead to zinc alloy. We're environmentally friendly, and we're working towards 90% there, and our goal is 98% unleaded, to be honest. So, but yeah, we went from the Pinhead to the Pinhead Pro and made some big changes.
So just to dive in a little more on the environmentally friendly aspect. So we all know lead is bad, right? Tell me about zinc alloy. Like, where does it come from? I know it shows up a little different on your flasher. Like, what made you settle on zinc alloy?
It's just a different metal, and of which there's several out there. There's bismuth, and we've got stuff in the works for that, and tin and stuff for works in that. But it's just one of the alternative metals like tungsten that has different properties than tungsten and has different properties than lead also too. But so that gives lures, aka Tikka Flash and other mentionables, the leech flutter spoon, gives them different actions because it's lighter than lead. So a lot of it's utilizing new materials and new technologies and things like that.
Are there any other precious metals in your jewelry cabinet that could possibly?
I don't know.
come into-
Things get more expensive than tungsten,
Tungsten, people pay for it. I pay
They
for
do.
it.
They
Bass
do.
fishing,
Pay
holy
for it.
smokes! About like a $20 flipping weight last year.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. I could lose that to a pike any flip.
Yeah. If I recall, there is in the works, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in the works that there is a push with the DNR saying that just like using it for waterfowl hunting, no longer can you use lead. They're doing the same thing for ice fishing. Is that correct? Or is that kind of a rumor?
No, that's absolutely correct. On the East Coast and the West Coast, we're seeing, of course, the Californias and the New Hampshires and Maines and places like that, and the provincial parks up in Canada and things like that enforcing it. It's coming. It's Europe, all over Europe. They get it. They're ahead of us in that realm, and it'll come to some degree here. You know.
Using lead just goes back to just having like harmful chemicals in the water, right? And then
Yeah, there's a reason they took it out of paint. There's a reason
yeah.
they took it out of lead, out of gas. I'm sorry, it's deadly, and no, it's time to move on.
So lead is, as we say, lead is dead. Zinc alloy and tungsten is here to stay.
Yep,
Or
and
we're-
bismuth and tin.
Bismuth. I don't even know what is
Cool.
bismuth. I know what tin is.
So you can use
I think.
bismuth. They make bismuth shotgun shells too that
Sure.
you can use
Oh,
that are
yes.
environmentally friendly. So
That is correct.
So that
Okay.
is it's kind of following the same steps as what the hunting world did.
Yeah. Do you realize, Crane, how much you influenced the industry with like a decision like the Pinhead Pro? Like, again, that just shakes our core.
It wasn't easy, and it wasn't without a lot of thought, but it catches more fish. And after I used it for an entire year and I caught more fish and was environmentally friendly, it was break the mold, John.
Yeah.
We did.
It's not just a marketing scheme.
No.
See,
We
and
were
that's-
caught off guard.
No, and that's like the backstory stuff that you don't see about Crane. I mean, this
know.
guy is out there every day thinking of new stuff and ways to make it better and make everybody else's life better. And it's just, that's the cool stuff, man. I mean, that's the stuff that people don't see. And it's just really cool to see that and hear that, you know?
Well, everything's getting better. Technology, my gosh, our electronics, our fish houses, our augers, everything. So our rods, reels, line, our tackle has to follow suit.
100%.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
absolutely. Back to just like you're saying, the technology. I mean, with forward-facing sonar now, like we have to talk about it. It's here to stay as well. And like the Pinhead Pro, we were talking like that thing sinks like a bullet. It is meant for.
It's meant to hunt with forward-facing
Hunt.
sonar. Yeah, it's meant
Yeah.
to hunt. And so is the Tikka Flash. So when you drop those lures down, it stays in the cone. There's a place for having flutter spoons. Let's say Red Lake, where it's 7 feet deep. Sure, go ahead and work that. When you're working deeper, maybe you should use a slab-type spoon like the Pinhead or jointed Pinhead. And most definitely forward-facing sonar is... We're hunting with these lures.
Yeah.
And not only that, but look at today, right? And yesterday, I mean, yesterday was a little better fishing, but like we're running around on these fish. We weren't fishing super deep. We were fishing like 24 feet of water, but those fish are moving so fast that you don't have time for that stuff I mean, you got to get it down there now before they're gone.
Yep.
And honestly, that's why we caught the fish that we caught today and yesterday, just getting it down there as fast as possible and getting on them.
If you're forward-facing sonar fishing tuna basin, like it takes a team of people to do it. Like you need one guy looking at the graph, one guy fishing, one guy cutting holes. Like honestly, that's what I've seen to be the most efficient.
Yeah.
I know in like the UPL and stuff, they only have 2 guys, and I don't know how they pulled off. Those guys are literally running from their machines to their graphs to their Vexilar to the next hole, and they might not even fish the hole that they just drill on the fish because they know the fish are still going, and they'll get out ahead of them, and hopefully that fish runs into their Pinhead minnow or drop kick or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of work, but the new technology it makes fishing so much more fun.
It's work, man. Like I'm not gonna lie, I was pre-fishing before you guys came, and I was out there by myself trying to do that, and I'm like, dude, like I can't do this anymore.
It takes
did it
3 or 4
No,
days.
It does.
can't.
I did it for like 4 hours,
3
and
or
I
4
got my
people.
live. I've got my Vexilar, and I've got my K-drill, and I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, could these crappies please just sit in one spot for a minute?
You can't.
No,
I think
you can't. It was hard.
After like a half hour of fishing today, I was like, you know what? Because we might have fish. We might be marking fish here, but they might move 10 feet away, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want to drill another hole because what do? They just spook,
Just keep
right?
on
They get
going.
freaked out. So I'm like, dude, we should just grid this whole entire area, let it rest for a little bit, and come back. Like,
We've had to do that
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And if you get
number of times.
3 guys drilling, like let's just grid out this entire area.
Yep.
Like that's one little tip. I talked about it briefly on the Insta story or something like
Yep.
that. Helps out a lot,
Definitely.
especially when it's clear water. Thin ice. It's just a little way.
Or we'll grid it out and move to another spot and count on coming back to
Come
one
back.
or 2 or 3 or 4 of these gridded out areas, depending how big the area is.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was definitely one of the more challenging things. And it, like I said, it's fun when you can land on them and you have a group of guys working together. Like it's really cool, but
It is.
you got to put in the effort. So
Yeah.
So how about today with the forward-facing sonar in down view, and we didn't catch that many walleyes, but, what were you seeing
Well,
down there?
I'm just saying, as far as like when you use, especially like I was saying for lake trout, but lake trout, Lake Winnipeg, some walleye stuff. The down view on live is cool because you can see the fish for such a further span, right? Like you can see them out there, 8-10 feet versus 2 feet. And like lake trout fishing, like Ash and I, like last year, we used it for the first time lake trout fishing. And I will tell you, we caught 3 to 4 times more fish because we're fishing in 60 feet of water. And when a fish leaves a flasher, you don't know if that trout went up or down in the column, but when you can see them and you can see him turn around, now you can place that, bait right where it needs to be more in the deal. And, but, like as far as forward facing sonar and flashers go, there's definitely a place for both of them.
Sure.
It's fun to learn on a live unit because it's like you get to see things that you've never seen before.
Yep.
I think that it's very important to be responsible with live as well, because let's face it, like you wouldn't be able to do what we did yesterday or today with a flasher. It's almost impossible. You can't stay on those fish. So now this is, you can go out to a basin, you can find fish in 2 seconds, So you got to be responsible with live as well in that manner. It's up to us to manage that.
Well, I mean, you definitely wouldn't find me. You wouldn't catch me dead without my flasher ever ice fishing, because
absolutely
when it comes down to it, sure, we had schools of 50 bluegills today, but dude, we had to get so pinpoint and so precise and zoom in on them things just to barely see them move. Like that's one thing that a forward-facing sonar unit, you see them move, but not as precise as you will on a flasher.
Exactly, and that's the difference between, like I was saying, like trout and walleyes. They're bigger, they got, but when you're chasing down like we were, you have to use the combo of forward-facing and fishing with a Vexilar. That's the way it's got to be, because you need to know precisely when you're going to have that fish eat.
Like if you're a guy who you're not chasing fish, like maybe you go set up, we saw another group out there, they're just going to set up on the break line and they are fishing those four holes. That's what most people do, I think, right?
Yeah.
All you need is a Vexilar, because you're only going to catch a fish from the hole you're fishing. You don't need to go look around. They have to go to you, which is totally 100%. Fine. That's how people have been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But the educational part of it, when you were in Downview, you were seeing, I was 15, 20 feet from you, and you saw 10 times as many fish.
Yeah.
So your confidence was through the roof, and I just had my Vexilar 20 feet away, and my confidence wasn't that great compared to yours. So it live shows you what is going on down there, like you said, in a bigger area, and it can really, for some beginner fishermen or even experienced, it's all about confidence. Fishing is all about confidence.
100%.
Sure. I had it. I was using it on my boat this last summer, just bass fishing, and to know that you're making the perfect cast right on the grass line every single time is like unbelievable.
It is.
Otherwise, you might bomb it 30 feet up on the flat. Next thing you know, you're ripping weeds and you're not going to catch a fish that bite. Whereas like if I can, I'm like, at 45 feet, I got this. Bomb it in there, watch it sink, pop it twice. I'm like, bite every single time. It's just amazing.
It's cool, like you're saying about hunting and fishing kind of going together earlier. I don't know if you do this, but when I'm out there chasing those crappies and in the summertime, like you're saying, walleyes with live, I think of it as a bow shot. Like I think, so like when you want to drill a hole and put your Vexilar right on those fish, you gotta see how far they were or how far away they are on the grid. And like if it's 30 feet, I think a 10-yard bow shot, I'm like steps. Right there. And that gets you pretty, after bow hunting for years and years, like you kind of start to really judge your distance, and you're like, yep, right there.
It's comedy, I think, sometimes when we're using forward facing out there, because we're just like, we all like huddle to like the hole that we have the unit in, and then it's like you like tilt the thing, you're like, oh yep, 45 feet, and then like you instantly grab your Vexilar and you're like, okay, 1, 2.
Talk about
3.
Exciting, man! It's just like Christmas.
Yeah,
it is.
It is. It gets you going.
And I look back, I'm like, how is that right? And you're like, yeah, you're right on them. I drop the Vex down, I'm like, yep, they're down here.
Oh, buddy.
And the crazy part too is when you drill, like a lot of people who haven't used it, like when you drill a hole, you can see the air bubbles and the ice chunks come down, and you're like, boom, you're right on.
You know what? You tell your
you
it's
just
game
know.
on.
It's game on.
We're
They're
rocking.
right there.
Yeah. One thing I was telling you this today, John, I think after fishing with some of the Crappie Chronicles dudes, I think I can tell I ruined this, but they, like Griff doesn't just, there's 40 crappies, go run and drill on them. He'll be like, do I want to catch, like, are those the ones I want to catch? And you'll just sit there and observe, right? You're always learning. You're not just like, losing your mind running and gunning and drilling holes. He's like, I don't think those are the ones, boys. And then he'll sit there and he'll keep panning slowly, and be like, oh, there's 2 rogue ones. Those are bigger. Hey, boys, let's go catch those ones right there. And, 9 times out of 10, those are the big ones.
It's true.
That just kind of blew my mind.
That's the thing about live is once you use it enough, you can start to pick that out. I mean, what do you think these bass guys are doing in the professional? Like that's not the one I want. No. Oh yeah, right there. That's the one I want. And I can attest to that because Ashley and I went up to Winnipeg last year for the first time. And you're fortunate up there once you get on the school. I mean, you're talking hundreds of walleyes. And you can specifically see, like, that's the one we want. Or they'd come in, and I'd be like, Ashley, get ready. That's like a 24, 25 inch. Like, you can get to the end. Like, you can tell. I'm not kidding. Like, you'll see in our video, our show, like, we're literally calling the size, and it's like, I mean, you can tell after you fish it long enough.
Crazy.
It's crazy, man. It's wild.
I noticed that with lake trout when we were up at Baker's Narrows, but those are big. You can obviously tell.
Yeah, but
40
that's to another scale,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's incredible stuff. Well, I see Tate in the background. We need to bring Tate onto the podcast really quick. Tate, you were on the podcast during Pro Day.
Come on in, Tate.
Yeah, sorry, Tom. We're kicking you out for a minute.
There you go, Tate.
Tom's just going to go eat all that crappie that's starting to get cold. So, Tate, you are the son of the famed Matt Brewer of Bemidji, Minnesota. Matt is actually in Texas still, hunting whitetails. I know he said he was going on a little vacation, Florida, Texas, or something. So we get you, which is a good thing because you caught the biggest walleye of today.
That is true.
Yeah. So you've been ice fishing the past couple weeks. How's that been going for you?
It's been all right. I've been trying to figure stuff out on my own, and one day went pretty bad, and the other day went pretty good.
Your dad doesn't just tell you what to do anymore? You're on your own?
I try to be on my own.
What fun is it if your dad tells you how to do it, huh?
Right. It's been
Go
handed to
do
me.
it yourself.
It's been handed to me for so long.
Yep.
I want to try.
Well, that's awesome.
That's cool.
You caught that fish on the Tikka minnow tonight, kind of doing your own thing. We're all huddled over by John because he was telling us about how many giants were swimming around. And then we look over and Tate's just bent over like, what are you doing? He goes, I think I got a big one. Fighting this thing, and thing comes up beneath the ice, just sitting there sideways looking at us. I'm like, ooh, that's a nice walleye, man.
It's hooked up.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Do you like fishing Tikka minnows a lot? Is that because you fish a lot of local lakes, right? Like around Bemidji, and you're mostly walleye fishing?
Yeah.
What give me your average day of Tate Brewer walleye fishing around Bemidji?
I go to school.
Oh, that's right. I
forget. I get out of school, and then I go home after riding the bus home. This was a couple of years ago now.
Okay.
And my dad and I will load up the truck, and we'll go out on the lake, and he knows the spots, obviously, so we just go right to them, and
so
on the fish.
You're learning a lot from your dad, but you're also learning a lot on your own, correct? Have you taught your dad anything?
Probably not.
Come on, dude.
You gotta have something.
He knows everything.
I feel like there's always.
Oh man, Matt's gonna get a big head now.
Well, he wasn't here today.
I know, right?
It was gonna be a tougher bite. No, that's awesome stuff, Tate. I feel like everyone. I think I've gotten to a point where I know a few more things better than my dad with fishing, but in general, it's like the thing you'll never take your old man down type deal, you know?
Exactly, man.
Right. My dad fishes very like traditional. It's like we're dropping anchor, we're bobber fishing, and sometimes, man, that is all you need to do.
That's how they got him that one time.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to change topics really quick, Crank, because I want to ask you these fun questions. So what is your favorite lure of all time that you designed? It can be from any company, any brand.
We got to go with the latest. It's the Tikka Flash, man.
Really? The Tikka Flash is your favorite of all time?
Yeah. Why is it your favorite?
Well, I've been using it for 3 years now, and there's just something to it. There's just that magical combination that's undescribable. It just has it.
I think one of the coolest things that you always say, and this is 100% true, and I used it all the time at the St. Paul Ice Show to explain the pinhead and the Tikka Flash, is you always say they're like a little piece of jewelry.
Absolutely.
And they are. They are unbelievable, the design on them
and
things,
we're selling
man.
them one at a time, and the paint's got to be perfect. There can't be any rejects. The plating's got to be gold plating and silver plating. So
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite parts of buying, I put my order in every winter and I get like 50 jigs and I'm just like unboxing them all and putting them in my little slim case.
Organizing.
And, like, this thing is just so
you got to buy a couple new slim cases to put them in every year.
Exactly.
I use a lot of leech spoons. I use a lot of Tikka minnows. I use a lot of pinheads. I power fish with those four.
Okay, what is the lure that you are least proud of throughout your entire career?
Oh, I don't
And
know.
you don't have to bash any lure.
No.
Like, there's got to be some. Like, I'm not proud of some, photos I've taken or videos I've done and stuff.
We've just had some, low selling items. Sometimes the best ideas just don't relate to sales.
Yeah.
The guppy spoon and a few things like that. The small pea, they're great in and of themselves.
Oh yeah.
But they just don't lend themselves to a lot of opportunities or fishable, or they're too nichey.
It was weird. I was watching one of those spoons at the St. Paul Ice Show, and I'm like, man, why don't I fish that thing?
Yeah.
Thing's got some great action. The
Yeah.
only time I've heard
Which
of it,
one?
I think it was the guppy.
Guppy spoon.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
the
was
guppy?
because
Yeah.
that has the one
The
hook.
flutter.
Yeah,
flutter,
Single
yeah.
hook.
the gills on the side.
Small pea's got the single hook.
Yeah, I'm like, this thing's got phenomenal action, but I just don't
Yeah.
think of that, when I'm like going walleye fishing, because that would
Yeah.
probably be a walleye bait, right?
Yeah.
Catfish.
People want treble hooks. That's a fact. We tried the single hook deal.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you can.
I
Get
think marketing asked for it. I'm not sure.
Really?
Just
Well, you did come out with an entire line of gaff treble hooks.
Yeah, that's true. That's
not
true.
long ago.
This
Those
is
things
true.
work really well.
Yeah.
If I can choose between one hook and three hooks, and I know the fish are going to actually bite three hooks, I'm going to choose three hooks.
There's no
every time.
question.
Speaking of back to Red Lake, last year we were out there and I was jigging just a rattling blade spoon, and dude, they just kept coming up and they would not fully commit. And I was like, you know what? I got one of these samples that Crane gave me last year. Gaff
right.
treble hook dropper
Right.
chain.
The dropper chains, yeah.
For sure.
Remember I was telling you how I did the thing with the minnow head, which I saw someone do years ago on a TV show
Yeah,
where
you put
you take the hook off and you wedge your minnow on it, and then you
your treble off.
put your treble back on your chain. Dude, it wasn't like 5 minutes, and I had one come in, and he didn't smoke it, but he was curious enough where I got him right in the snoot.
Yep.
I did the same thing today on the lake we were fishing for crappies. I'm like, you know what? I'm trying to force feed them these pinhead minnows. They don't want it. I'm like, where's
Right.
my little dropper chain?
Yep.
Break it
spoon?
out the tungsten dropper.
Yeah, that when all else fails, I'm going
Yeah.
to the smallest lure I can possibly use, or those tiny, tiny, tiny dropper chains.
That's what it is.
Right, Tate? Is that what your dad tells you?
Totally.
Dude, those dropper chains work. We use them a lot in late ice for whitefish around here.
Perch,
Unbelievable,
whitefish,
man.
Cisco's, tullabies.
Yep.
They're nichey, but they're really good at
They
certain
are,
times.
For sure, 100%.
And now you've got confidence in that bait.
I
And,
do.
And yeah,
I just know it. Yeah. and-
absolutely.
Think of how many baits are out there that work well that people just don't. That's one of the biggest. That's like, if I can tell anybody one, like a tip is like when you go to a lake and you just fish a lake, right? You can't just give it one shot. You can't just go there and be like, no, there's no fish here. We're done. I'm never fishing this lake again. I've fished some lakes like 10 times and struck out. And on the 11th time, you're like, bam, that's how you do it. It's no different than baits, right? Like we're talking about the spoon, the guppy spoon. I guarantee you if people took that bait up to Lake of the Woods or Red Lake and used it, because, a lot of baits are the hot bait, which is for a reason, but they could use that spoon, and who knows, maybe you're going to have your best day you've ever had. And you got to just be open-minded to that. And I'm very guilty of that, like, especially in musky fishing. You're like, oh man, like this is the bite. This is the way it's going.
Yep.
Like, and then you just do it over and over and you're fishing memories. Can't do that, man. You can't fish memories. That's the biggest thing I've learned, is you just got to be open-minded when it comes
And we
to
talked
fishing.
about that with switching baits, big time tonight.
Yeah.
Keep
God.
moving, different 1 pound test, 4 pound test, different
Yeah,
different weights.
100%.
Yeah. It's kind of fun now. I used to always think, I'm like, okay, I got my little tungsten jigging, jig or whatever, and then I have my like pinhead or, my spoons that go more vertical. Well, now we have the ribbon spoon, like the ribbon leech flutter spoon. Like that thing just goes everywhere. We have the Tikka minnow that darts around. We have the Tikka Flash that kind of does a little bit of everything. It's like if you're sitting there over a hole for more than 15 minutes trying to force feed them, just switch up.
Grab a different club. Go
Yeah,
out, grab a
exactly.
different rod.
Do a different color, different size, a different jigging cadence. Like just don't get stuck in the same way.
Yeah.
I found myself guilty of that right away, and I knew I was doing it. I'm like, dude, cut that thing off right
Yeah.
now. Like you need to downsize. It's just what it is.
Or the biggest advice, move holes.
Move holes, right?
Yeah.
Go try finding the active fish.
Active
Tate
fish.
moves holes, don't you, buddy?
I was moving a lot tonight.
Yes,
you were.
You know that.
Yeah, you
And it's
got
work,
you
right?
Got the biggest walleye. out
It
of
worked.
Yes, it did.
What were you doing? So you were catching walleyes the other night. Were you posted up?
I was sitting on the exact spot that I fished last year, like the exact marker, and I sat in a little two-man. It was an older two-man,
Yep.
and I sat in the exact same hole all night. I had 2 holes. I had my jigging rod and my dead stick rod, and all the fish came out of that same spot.
Sometimes that's all you need to do.
Right
Maybe we're
on.
overthinking this thing,
Exactly.
Crane. I need to go ice fishing with Tate more, I guess.
Right.
Just flip the shack over and stay there. Yeah, we can't get away from just the things that always work.
Contact
right?
spot is a contact spot. And
Oh,
he's got
yeah.
confidence in that
You
contact
do.
spot.
That's
Was it a
good.
spot you open water fished before or just ice fished?
Just ice fished.
Really? You were
Did
dropping-
you? The real question is, did you find that spot or did your dad?
I did not find that spot.
Oh, bummer. I was hoping we could
come on,
bash
dude.
Matt a little bit here and tell him, hey, man, your
Yeah,
son
we'll
is.
give Matt a hard time.
Yeah, we got to give him a hard time. He's down in Texas shooting giant deer. How big was it? Dude, like 170 inches?
That's their guess.
Jeez,
Oh, my.
I
That's awesome.
dream
He's
of
got
a
a
buck.
taxidermy bill there.
That's my biggest
Yeah,
buck, and I've never seen anything even close to that
That's an awesome.
in my 20 years of hunting. That was just a rare occasion. I drew over a buck like that.
Yeah. Well, anyways, guys, we're an hour and 10-ish minutes into this podcast, and I know that Ashley is sitting over there probably listening to us, watching. I can see
She
it. Yep,
is.
the
She's
food's
like, "Come
getting
eat."
cold. So any departing words on episode 32 of the podcast, Mr. John Crane?
It's the beginning of ice. Be safe out there. You know, we weren't on the main bodies of water on these lakes around here. We were in the bays, mostly northern bays. And so just because Red Lake is froze over, that doesn't mean anything. Red Lake freezes over early.
Yep.
And Tate was on an early freeze over Walleye Lake locally here. So watch that main lake, talk to the resorts. Let's have a fun year and just be safe out there and watch this first ice. It's fun.
Yep. Common sense. The lure everyone should have tied on this year as they hit any lake.
I'm doing good with the Rattling PT also. You know, it's got the painted treble on there. We've got some panfish sizes and also some walleye sizes. So looking forward to using the Rattling PT up on Red Lake and Lake of the Woods here coming up.
Good deal. All right, Mr. John Holmgren, Devoted Outdoors. Any departing words for you?
Not really. I mean, same thing as what Crane said. I mean, just be careful out there. This is a really, really weird year that we're having right now. It looks like it's going to start to get cold a little bit next week, but just don't rush it. We've been checking ice, prior to going out every day, and just make sure you be careful. Safety's number one. But have a fun year, man. It's going to be, here we are, 2023 ice season started, 24, and we're on our way.
Awesome. And Tate, one question for you. Who's a better fisherman, you or your dad? Go.
It depends.
No,
I think- hey,
you or your dad.
Hey, in the winter,
Okay, all right.
Oh, he's got something here. Huh?
Yeah.
in the winter, I would say I'm a better fisherman.
See, there
Wow, there you go,
Okay,
Matt.
Matt.
Strong-
Now we can
strong
finally.
words.
I love it.
you go. Me
That's good.
too.
Well,
But
good deal, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in. Like we said during the podcast, if you're going out, soon, just be safe. Use your common sense. Utilize the technology and all the good tools and the gifts that John Crane gives to us from his special jewelry, collection of tackle, because it makes us catch more fish. So
100%.
awesome. Well, checking out from episode 32 of the Ice Team podcast. There you go, Mr. John Crane, Tate Brewer, Tom Hang, and John Holmgren.